I begin in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. All praise belongs to Him and all of us have to return to Him. The topic of our discussion today is Value Education in National Education Policy 2020. I am grateful to Professor Afshar Alam Sahab, Janab Mustafa Farooq Sahab, Dr. Arshad Hussain, Dr. Fazlur Rahman, Dr. Ahmad Naimi, and their associates. Girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, we have identified our education policy with this logo that is known as the Mobius strip. The Mobius strip gives the message of equity between various sections of the society. Friends, education policy making is a dynamic process. We should compare our education policy with those of similar major nations of the world and benefit from such comparison. Let us devise a permanent mechanism to keep ourselves abreast of major characteristics of the education policies of prominent nations. Girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many apps available online to be downloaded on your device, on your telephone, iPad, laptop, desktop, etc., whereby you can readily get to learn about what is where mentioned in the Constitution of India. I have such an app for a long time in all my devices. You also kindly download. So here we talk today of Article 51AC of the Constitution of India, which says that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious and other diversities. The National Education Policy 2020 says that education is fundamental for achieving full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, and promoting national development. In the section devoted to the Principles of NEP 2020, the document says that the purpose of the education system is to develop good human beings capable of rational thought and action, possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, scientific temper and creative imagination, and above all, with sound ethical moorings and values. NEP aims at producing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our Constitution. The fundamental principles of NEP include ethics and human and constitutional values like empathy, respect for others, cleanliness, courtesy, democratic spirit, spirit of service, respect for public property, scientific temper, liberty, responsibility, pluralism, equality, and justice. These also include respect for diversity and full equity and inclusion. The policy envisages that the curriculum and pedagogy of our institutions must develop among the students a deep sense of respect towards the fundamental duties and constitutional values. The vision of the policy is to develop knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development and living, and global well-being, thereby reflecting a true global citizen. Certain skills need to be learned by all students, and these include ethical and moral reasoning, knowledge and practice of human and constitutional values, gender sensitivity, fundamental duties, citizenship skills and values, knowledge of India, environmental awareness, including water and resource conservation, sanitation, and hygiene. In later years, this would be expanded along themes against cheating, violence, and plagiarism, and for tolerance, equality, and empathy, etc., with a view to enabling the children to embrace moral and ethical values in conducting one's life, formulate a position and argument about an ethical issue for multiple perspectives, and use ethical practices in all work. As a consequence of such basic ethical reasoning, as per the NEP, the values which will be developed in all students will be as follows: Seva, Ahimsa, Swachhata, Satya, Nishkam Karma, Shanti, sacrifice, tolerance, diversity, pluralism, righteous conduct, gender sensitivity, respect for elders, respect for all people and their inherent capabilities regardless of background. The NEP also prescribes that excerpts from the Indian Constitution will also be considered essential reading for all students. Scientific explanations of the detrimental and damaging effects of alcohol, tobacco, and drugs will be included in the curriculum. Para 6.2.4 of the National Education Policy of India 2020 says that the minorities are relatively underrepresented in school and higher education. And the policy acknowledges the importance of interventions to promote education of children belonging to all minority communities, and particularly those communities that are educationally underrepresented. And the Prime Minister's High-Level Committee has already reported that the Muslim community of India is most underrepresented community in education and other fields. For this purpose, some actions have been specified in the NEP where higher educational institutions will have to be proactive. In the field of online and digital education, the policy says that the institutions and the governments must ensure equitable use of technology. It adds that it is important that the use of technology for online and digital education adequately addresses concerns of equity. In para 4.28, the National Education Policy 2020 says that students will be taught at a young age the importance of doing what is right and will be given a logical framework for making ethical decisions. The policy emphasizes social justice and equality and national integration as well as cultural preservation. The National Education Policy 2020 of India also recapitulates the significance of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And it seeks to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promotion of lifelong learning opportunities for all. Now here, ladies and gentlemen and girls and boys, I am going to add a wish of mine. The NEP is already finalized, and as I was just now discussing with the learned Vice Chancellor and other members sitting here, it is a general understanding that the National Education Policy 2020 is already finalized and there cannot be any changes in that. So I very respectfully beg to differ from that. On the basis of my experience in the Government of India, having worked from the district level right up to the Cabinet Secretariat, Prime Minister's office level for more than 3 decades, I can say that yes, National Education Policy is finalized, but there are instrumentalities in the framework of the running of the governance of India, whereby the government can from time to time issue instructions and circulars, and they become part and parcel of the implementation of the policy. So if the government wishes, and let us try to persuade it that a little addition in the basic framework of the policy. And that is what is known as alternate admission criteria for the consideration of the people and of the government. Ever since India became independent, and in fact since before that, merit has been the only criterion for consideration for purposes of giving admissions in undergraduate and postgraduate studies in the universities and colleges. But the policy is also talking about encouraging the deprived sections of society. From those sections, the children at the school level did not have that kind of support which many other families and sections of society have been having. So therefore, it is difficult for the deprived sections to compete purely on merit. And that way, if merit remains the criteria only, then the deprived sections will not get admission in undergraduate and postgraduate levels in appropriate numbers. So therefore, what has been suggested is an alternate admission criteria where out of 100 marks, 60 should be given on the basis of merit and 40 should be given on the basis of the backwardness of the candidate seeking admission. There are details available for that. So I'm not going into those details, but then I'm just trying to flag this issue at the moment, that this should also be on the table for consideration for possible inclusion in the National Education Policy 2020. Friends and children, we have so far tried to understand the contents of the National Education Policy 2020 of India. Let us try to imbibe the sense given by the policy in the parlance of our day-to-day life. In that sense, the question arises, why God has created humanity? That is to say, what is the divine purpose of creating humanity? And the answer is, so that God judges as to who among us is more helpful to the fellow being. That is the purpose of creation of humanity. We must have that straight in our mind. So I'm reminded here of the one-liner, Zindagi jehadast wa istihqaq nest. Life is struggle and perseverance, and it's not a right to be just taken away. Before proceeding further here, I would particularly address the young generation and remind them that in a gentle way you can shake the world. That is by sticking to the values that are prescribed in the National Education Policy of India 2020. In a gentle way, you can shake the world. It's important to note the proportion and order divinely bestowed on the human soul and its capacity to differentiate between wrong and right. Truly, one succeeds that purifies the soul, and another fails that corrupts it. So, if the spirit loses piety, then purity of conscience, high thinking, and decency disappear altogether. That is why the poet says, Rahe na ruh mein pakizgi, to hai na paid, zamir pak o khayal buland o zawq latif. Also, the question arises, what is faith? What is religion? The poet answers. The poet is a philosopher. He answers that actually it is rising above the level of dust. Dust means the human body. So, there are two parts of an individual existence. One is the body, the other is soul. So the poet reminds us that soul is more important than the body. So far as I am able to raise my level much above the body, and my area of activity becomes the soul, that is what is to be achieved as a result of every faith in the world. Friends and children, let us go a little deeper into the nitty-gritty. There is a concept of nuclear family, and we all know about what is nuclear family. The parents, children, siblings. That is the nuclear family. It's very important, surely. But we must remind ourselves that the world does not finish at nuclear family. The nuclear family is only the first orbit. It is everybody's natural habitat, sure. But there are other orbits also. There is an extended family. All those who are related to me by blood or marriage, they form my extended family. And the scripture calls it Zawil Qurba. There is a sense of responsibility, huge sense of responsibility of every individual towards her or his extended family. The third orbit is neighborhood. As we know, 40 houses in each direction, north, south, east, west, which means 160 houses. Then the society, the region to which I belong, the province where I was born and I have lived and got educated, the nation after all, yes, my faith, my deen, the community to which I belong, the continent, and the world. So, every individual has a multi-orbit relationship with the environment, with the world, with the cosmos. And friends and children, one has to have a vision of life accordingly. Now, ladies and gentlemen and children, there is a concept of a sound heart, qalb salim. So, it is understood that the possessor of a sound heart puts to test his or her power by entering into big adventure. Another lesson to be learned is always be on the side of justice and fair play, even in the wake of apparent danger. Only that person will get to reach his destination who, in the dark forest night, treats the leopard's eye as a source of light. And friends, each one of us must try to imbibe in ourselves some of the divine qualities. We know what is kun fayakun. When God decrees a matter, He only says to it, be, and it is done. Actually, this indicates the divine quality of creation. That's why the poet says, अपनी दुनिया आप पैदा कर अगर जिंदों में है, सिर्र आदम है, ज़मीरे कुन फ़कां है ज़िंदगी. If you consider yourself to be a really living person, create a world by yourself. Such proactivity is the essence of human life, which must manifest the godly quality of creation. God also says in the scripture that every day he is engaged in some new design. So we should also do and persevere to make new discoveries, add something new to the world, like it was done by Averroes and Avicenna, Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd. We are aware that there is a talk of something which is known as khudi. It's translated in English as selfhood. But Dr. Sir Iqbal had himself given its metaphysical definition in English language. He says that khudi or selfhood is a bright spot of the conscience by which all human ideas and inspirations are enlightened. It is a silent force which is anxious to come into action. एक खामोश क़ुव्वत जो अमली जामे में आने के लिए बेताब रहती है. Let us also remind ourselves, friends, that as we are talking to each other even now, the number of pulses that have been granted to each one of us separately are reducing every moment. So, as per interpretation, this concept of khudi is also the appropriation of the passing pulse by the present pulse of thought, and that of the present by the successor. That is khudi. So, let us fill every minute with 60 useful seconds. That's how God is telling each one of us, the human being, अपने मन में डूब कर पा जा सुराग़े ज़िंदगी. तू अगर मेरा नहीं बनता न बन, अपना तो बन. Try to recognize yourself, your potential. Thus says God to human beings, dip yourself deep inside your heart, mind and conscience and explore the purpose of life. Even if you are not able to fully identify yourself with me, that is with God, at least be conscious of your own full worth. So friends and children, God invites the human being, that is each one of us, to be his co-worker. That's what is his mandate to us. So, let us make sure that we always think positive, no unnecessary negativity. Friends, so far we have understood what all has been prescribed by the National Education Policy of India 2020 in the domain of value education. Thereafter, in the second segment, we try to understand the nuances of such prescriptions in a way so that it goes down deep into our psyche. And now in the third segment, we will very briefly look into what are the impediments, what are the possible hiccups in the implementation of the NEP as far as the value education is concerned, and how to deal with it, how we should be prepared for that. We should not leave everything with the government. We should also realize our responsibility. I would recommend, and this is my terminology, to give a physiotherapeutic treatment to this issue. Like when there is someone is having a knee pain, then it's not only the knee that is to be treated, but the muscles quite far away from the knee on both sides, up and down, have to be toned up continuously through persevering exercises. That's why I say we need to give a physiotherapeutic treatment to the issue of ensuring good impartation of value education as prescribed under national education policy. I feel that the human software needs to be conducive. That's very important. What is there in the brain, in the mind of each one of us? That needs to be conducive to the value education. The ecosystem needs to be congenial. What the entire society is talking about, what it is emphasis, what the media is saying, how the TV channels are behaving. All these factors are very important concomitants for proper implementation of NEP 2020. What kind of tarbiyat or sanskar need to be given to the children by the family? That's an important factor for implementation of value education. What are the family traditions that are dear to each one of us? Which one of those we should emphasize more and which one we should emphasize less? And friends and children, we must keep on learning from the best practices wherever they are happening. Should try to find out the best practices and circulate them. So, ladies and gentlemen and friends and children, this is all that I had to say regarding the significance of value education as part of the National Education Policy of India 2020. May God bless our beautiful India. May God bless each one of us. Thank you.